Hey, welcome back to Up North with the Nybergs. Ed here. Today is cold. It is a very cold December day. Temperatures around, I don't know, maybe 23, 24 degrees. And last night we received about 8 inches of lake effect snow. But I was able to clear the driveway. We got about a half-mile driveway with my plow truck that I affectionately call Big Red. Anyway, today I thought I would show you our wood boiler here. If you aren't new to the channel, you know we cut approximately probably about 20, 21, 22 face cords of wood each season that we store to supplement our heat. Our wood boiler is about 15 years old. The brand is Wood Doctor, which is no longer in business. Really a comparable model today would be a Polar Furnace LG15, which is built and sold in Canada. These types of boilers are no longer available in the United States just because technology has improved so much. In fact, the technology advances really in boiler furnaces over the last decade have really been incredible. And we study and watch the advances quite often. Our wood boiler is old, obviously 15 years, and it's severely outdated. So we're going to replace this unit with a central Boiler Classic Edge HDX model, either in the spring or the summer of next year, depending on when we can actually get one. The new boilers use a secondary combustion that helps the furnace to burn much hotter and cleaner, achieving, believe it or not, close to a 90% efficiency rating. In comparison, this older unit is probably closer to 50% efficiency, which is pretty poor, quite frankly. That's why we have to use so much wood. Okay, let's discuss this older unit. Most of you are familiar with how wood boilers work, but for those who aren't, let's discuss their operation a little bit. The water jacket on this particular 15-year-old wood boiler unit is roughly 220 gallons of treated water, and it uses a pump at the rear of the unit to pump the water into the basement through underground pipes. And they go right into the side of the hill right there, which is approximately 75 feet or so. So at this point, let's head down to our mechanical room located in the basement, where I can show you where all this plumbing enters the basement, and we can talk about what happens at that point. All right, this is where the wood boiler connects to our furnaces down here in the basement. You can see the red supply water, and that currently is about 130, 135 degrees coming in. And then the blue is the return of the water heading back down to the wood boiler. And so what ends up happening is the hot water comes in. Sorry for all the shadows here, but I'm trying to give you a good look at it, the system. It looks pretty complicated, but in actuality, it really isn't. It's a closed system. The wood boiler is 220 gallons and pushes out about 525,000 BTUs when it's fully operational. We actually have 2 furnaces, and so that's why you see all of this. If you just have a single furnace, you'll see about a third or at least half of what you see here in regards to plumbing and all this copper piping. So what ends up happening is, say a zone up in the house requires heat, one of these three pumps will turn on, and you can actually see this one is on, and then over here on the far right, that one is on, designated by this green light. And so this will pump the water from the wood boiler that's in the system to that particular furnace. And we'll take a look at this furnace right here. And so this pipe on the left here, this one right here, is extremely hot. This is the supply. So hot water by these pumps is being pushed into this supply, into the heat exchanger, which is inside of this unit right here. Once it does its thing through the heat exchanger, it then gets pushed out through this return pipe and comes right back up here and back into the system, which eventually pushes it back out here into this blue return pipe. And as I mentioned, or I may not have mentioned, that if the furnace is calling for heat and the water temperature is not 115, 120 degrees, then this unit right here, a thermostat, will actually tell the furnace that we need to start utilizing propane in order to get the heat where it needs to be in order to service those particular zones. So this typically will come on like really late at night, early in the morning, when the temperature falls below 115, 120 degrees. So that's kind of how that works. It's a closed system. It looks really, really complicated, but it really isn't. The other thing that we're in the process of doing, we don't do it now, we're not using our water heaters, but the two heat exchangers are right up here. The reason we're not is I'm in the process of replacing these two pumps, this one right here and this one right here. I've ordered the pumps, they've arrived, just haven't installed those. These three pumps have been replaced, but these two are older pumps that need to be replaced before we start adding and putting on the water heater to the system. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below, but it looks complicated, but it really, really isn't. All right, as I mentioned, we store roughly 22, 23 cords of wood over here to feed our wood boiler. It's not too far of a walk here. Sometimes Kathy will use this red sled and load it up when she comes down. For the most part, I do most of the feeding of the wood boiler, and we typically put in, it's a big firebox, so we typically put in about 15 to 20 logs at a time, and that'll get us a good 6-7 hours. And if we really put a lot in at night, if we come down here, say 8-9 o'clock at night and fill it up, then we really, I have coals in the morning and we can start it right back up. Now I do have on our furnaces that if the temperature falls below a certain degree, then the furnace will automatically kick over to propane. And that happens, especially on some really, really cold nights and when I don't want to come out and feed this thing at 2 or 3 in the morning. We could put a lot of wood in, and we have done that on really, really cold nights. We'll just put a lot of wood in and that'll carry us through the whole night. But typically, it might fall below that 120 degree range and maybe pull from propane. We have about 1,500 gallons of propane right over the hill there, and we might have to pull a little bit from that a couple hours a night. And then when I come down here in the morning, I usually get up and come down here about 6:30 in the morning and get it all set up for the next day's use. But that doesn't happen very often. However, in January, if it gets below 10 degrees or single digits, then, and the wind's blowing, then we certainly will have to feed this beast a little bit more than we typically do. As I mentioned, if it gets above 35, we really don't use it very often because we have so many windows in the house. It's well insulated. We find that if we get above 35 or so, it just doesn't, the furnace just doesn't ask for any heat from the wood boiler. So we typically only run it when it's, well below 35, typically around 30 or below, and then it works out great. As always, if you have any questions about this particular Wood Doctor wood boiler, like I mentioned, it's a Polar Furnace LG15 is the most comparable today. There's some other ones that do a much better job from an efficiency standpoint, and I would highly recommend you check those out as well. But if you do have any questions, please leave them below. I try to answer everything, and we really appreciate the questions and comments and things of that nature, so certainly do that. As always, if you like the content of this channel, we live up in northern Lower Michigan, up in the Pinky area. If you want to see how we manage our 70 acres, and especially in the winter, and how we handle and plow our almost half-mile driveway, certainly subscribe to the channel, share it with your family and friends. But until next week, I should say, thank you very much for watching. And this is Ed for Up North with the Nybergs.